So welcome to today's May 2023 Pass It On session. On to the next slide. So quick little bit about myself. So I've been working in the agile software space for almost smack bang 12 years, slightly more. I've worked across a bunch of different industries. I started out as a developer, very quickly learned that that wasn't my cup of tea, moved on into more the delivery aspect of things. I love people. People are my passion. People are where I like to focus my time and energy. And so a lot of what I do, a lot of what I look at is how to really engage people, how to really get the best out of my teams and the people that I work with. And then just a fun little fact, I'm a big old nerd. I love things, all things video games, comic books, Dungeons and Dragons, the whole shebang. So I'm personally very keen to see how this topic actually applies in that space as well, just beyond just the work aspect. So that's it. That's me. Quick little summary. And I'll hand over to Michael.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. So I'll do a little bit of an intro to myself as well. So yeah, I've got 2 years working in agile software delivery experience. I previously worked at Coles. I initially started in the graduate program and I rolled off into the emerging technology and disruptive tech space. But yeah, I had an awesome opportunity to work in that space and kind of switched over to software delivery because it was really kind of the passion and kind of where I wanted to go. Very similar to Ben. I'm a big old nerd as well. I think my main interests are virtual reality. So it's kind of looking at that space and seeing where that's growing to enhance existing experiences as well as completely new experiences. I also like collecting virtual skins, pretty much useless, but, they've got some value to them. It depends on what the market thinks. And lastly, I'm always looking for new places to eat. So if anyone has any interesting places that they know about, either in Sydney or Melbourne, just write in Teams or hit me a message afterwards about any of those things. So yeah, keen to always do new things. So we can kind of kick off our presentation for today. So, thank you everyone for joining. And really what we're going to be talking about is ChatGPT and its impacts on us. I think this session is really more about understanding how ChatGPT is versus what it does. About what it technically does. So we're really more looking at a broader picture or a broader scheme of where it kind of fits in with us as people. It has impacts just not within work, but also outside of work. So we'll really kind of do a bit of a deep dive there. But I think it's kind of all this greenfield grassroots thing that's only started since November last year with the public release. So it's been kind of an interesting journey to see what's happened in the past 6 months, and we want to kind of bring everyone on this journey as well. So just before we start, just wanted to do a bit of an agenda, and these are the kind of 3 elements that we wanted to cover off today. So the first one is an overview. This one will be more of a grounding exercise of how do we see ChatGPT where it is and how it's gotten here. And then we'll kind of switch on to a more collaborative session of exploring examples or case studies of how ChatGPT has had implications in the workforce, but also outside of the workforce. And we've also got some time to kind of digest and have a discussion on what the impacts are. But yeah, to Ben's point, just feel free to add some sticky notes, or if you don't have access to the Miro board, just write in the comments and we can add those sticky notes
Also,
to the session.
Don't hesitate to shout out as well. Like at any point in time, if you have a question or anything like that, do not hesitate to interrupt, and we can just have the conversation. That's really why we're here.
Awesome call out, Ben. So yeah, so that's the agenda. Let's kind of kick off to what the overview is all about. So, kind of to the first point, everyone in the world is currently looking at ChatGPT. There's been so much, enthusiasm and general audience engagement with the ChatGPT. I think the product is at a great space currently, where the commercialization is readily being looked at. In comparison to some other disruptive technologies that we've looked at in the past, I think specifically the one that comes to mind most recently is blockchain. we're seeing mass engagement and mass applications of ChatGPT across a wide array of areas. Just in 2 months, so this is probably in January, they already reached 100 million users, which I think, based on my knowledge, is maybe 5 times the population of Australia. So that's incredible to see how that's happened and how mass adopted it has become. In terms of the acceleration of AI tools, it doesn't just include ChatGPT. So I'm sure people are aware, there are other tools out there that are being published, specifically tools that generate AI art. There's a whole fiasco happening there about, is AI truly an artist? How does this impact us? How does this impact the artistry industry? But similar, how does ChatGPT affect all our jobs? How does it affect jobs as, delivery, developers, so on and so forth? So there's kind of this whole unsteadiness that's happening, and it's really interesting to see the effects of where ChatGPT is leading us to. Another point that I really wanted to emphasize is that the infrastructure and the ecosystem is constantly and rapidly evolving just in the past 6 months. So I've got this little timeline here. It is a bit small, but the great thing about using Miro is that we can actually kind of zoom in, and everyone can kind of focus on it, on where we're presenting. So this is just a timeline that this person has built, and this is just a timeline from November to April. And we can see that there's been such a massive influx of engagement and investment into this space. And this is just for ChatGPT. You can see I've kind of highlighted a few sections here, but Google is coming in, Meta's releasing their version. The API is released and launched for ChatGPT 3.5 just in January. And then ChatGPT 4, oh, sorry, apologies, that's the American date version, that's March. And just in 14 days, ChatGPT 4 is released. So there's so much happening in this space, and it feels like it's very hard to keep up with all this change that's happening. So really, it's just keeping a close ear to the ground to understand that there's just so much happening, and it's very interesting to just be aware of what's happening. We're also seeing different elements that are occurring. So governments are also now blocking the tool. So Italy is blocking it, and just recently, one of the biggest concerns that a lot of organizations have is the privacy of their data. So one of the things that was announced, I think 2 weeks ago, was that they're releasing a business plan, which effectively restricts the amount of information that is shared with the model, and you can still use it for applications. So really, that's kind of the overview of what we wanted to show as to what the space is like at the moment. And this is just what we know that it will disrupt, and there's a potential for other disruptions that could happen.
I think it's worth calling out very quickly as well, just in the space of the last, I don't know, month or two that we've been prepping for this, we've had to re-evaluate our thinking, re-evaluate what we wanted to present, just because of how rapidly everything has been changing. So it's very much a growing space, and I think it's just going to grow more and more in the coming months as well.
Yeah, 100%. So just for the last overview slide, to kind of ground out the understanding that we all have. This is kind of a very rough timeline as to how we perceive the impacts of what ChatGPT does, and kind of lays out a historical timeline of how we use information and how we gather it. I think effectively the point that we want to demonstrate here is that the way we interact with information has changed. Previously, we worked with information and we had to gather it ourselves and hunt for it. So there's different information sources. You had to go to the library, go to encyclopedia. You had to talk to like 20 different people to get the information that you wanted. And we've kind of seen it evolve in the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years of tools like Google Search, Yahoo, that kind of provide a filtration of the information that we're receiving, and kind of provides the best guess or the best estimated response to what the question that we have or the information that we need. And we're kind of transitioning to a state now that's already happened even before ChatGPT of AI recommendation models, of the information of us, instead of us going out to find the information is coming to us. And based on that, we can then assess and identify which ones are most important for us. So Google's doing that, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, they've got these recommendation AI models that based on what you've watched previously, these are things that we think you're interested in. And what we see now with ChatGPT is that it kind of does that job in itself for us as well. So instead of us having to look through 10 different searches or 20 different prompts or talk to 50 different people, it can provide an answer based on those 50 different answers and provide you one coherent, hopefully accurate answer. So that's where we see it's happening, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. This is a little bit of a joke, I just had a little bit of a far future. So it'll be interesting to see with ChatGPT where it goes. Are we getting into the space of generalized AI? Will that what does that mean for our society in the future? So yeah, that's probably more of an open question and probably less about this. How does it impact us? So that's really more of the overview. So we'll go to the next section, which is talking about how do we see ChatGPT impact us at work. So this is where we'd love to get some audience engagement.
Yeah.
Have you had any?
I might chime in real quick.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just would, as Michael was just encouraging, please feel free to start inputting your own points of view here. Again, if you aren't on the Miro board and can't use the sticky notes, please feel free to just either type it in the chat or just shout out. Either way works. We would love to see how everyone feels they are impacted from a work perspective. So examples at work, how it's already helping you, or scenarios that you think could be of benefit to you. I'll just give us a quick 2 minutes for everybody to just chuck things down. We can see if we need a little bit more time or not, but we'll start with just the 2 minutes. So please go for it. Interesting. I might have to do the timing manually. Michael, do you have a view of the timer, the usual Miro timer? If not, that's okay. There we go.
Yeah, just started a timer for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, as I can see a whole bunch coming down, I might start grouping some of them together as best as possible as well. There's one around helping to write emails, helping to write resume, drafting emails for context, grammar, summary. Move this out of the way. Rewording. Recipes, meal plans, nice. Awesome. Finding tech solutions to any business problems. Okay. we have 10 more seconds of this, so feel free to also jump in and start noting down where you feel that it could benefit you, even if it's not something that you're seeing straight away. And then we'll kind of cover it all. So maybe we can give another 2 minutes for this aspect of things as well.
Just noticing that big yellow sticker generated this presentation. It actually did help us build a framework at the very start of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to cover. But we definitely played upon it over time. So I think that was really great. A good call out. I don't know if that was you, Ben.
No, don't look at me. That wasn't me. Got another minute. Anybody wants to chuck down any further ideas? Okay, so a few of these are somewhat similar to some of the ones up top as well, which is really cool to see. Write social media posts, presentations, etc. Creating content, finance planning, help with structure of presentations. All right, so I think a few of these are very much in line with what ML and myself have been thinking about as we've been going through this. So really just kind of going back to the top section here, there's a lot of assistance, I think, is the key takeaway that I can see here. It is a lot of people are already seeing this tool support them in what they are doing, whether it's writing resumes, writing emails, writing a lot of things. So it's that little bit of an assistant there. It's taking a lot of information and giving it in a short and concise approach. So summarizing, helping cut down copy, writing LinkedIn posts, so on and so forth, but then also helping us to find out different ways to do some of the things that we already do. So different tones of writing, rewording sentences, so on and so forth. And one that I really like is the recipes and meal plans. So these are all really cool examples that we can see people already using. And just off of that, like the feeling that I'm getting from this and of what people are saying is like, it's a really good assistant, effectively. It's not doing the job for us per se, but it is supporting us to do the things that we want to do. By the way, feel free to chime in if you disagree with anything that I'm saying or want to add anything further. Cool. And then to some of the scenarios that we have here as well, writing social media posts, creating content, helping with reports, finance planning. Those are all very, very good examples of what we can do here. I might just jump over to the next slide, ML, if you don't mind. So what we want to do is to one of the examples, and maybe ML, you can cover this off, about you've seen one of our devs use it, but I think this was also one of your own personal examples that you had recently.
Yeah, so it's I think with the general audience, I kind of wanted to have like a really kind of a good example of seeing how it impacts us, even though it's outside of the software development industry. So one of the things that I was actually having trouble with currently in my workplace was I needed to do some video screen recordings, but there were a lot of restrictions on what I can and can't do because it is a client laptop. So effectively, I had an initial prompt, an initial question that was very open-ended, which was, how do I record a video screen recording on a Windows 10 laptop? And I kind of went through the process of, giving ChatGPT prompts to kind of pinpoint what I needed specifically based on the constraints. And it actually gave me a result that actually worked. Kind of in comparison to if I was using ChatGPT versus Google, Google would have given me, maybe 10 answers based on the information I was giving to it, and it would have been wrong. But ChatGPT was able to learn based on what the feedback I was giving to it to actually get the answer that I needed. So in this circumstance, ChatGPT versus a tool like Google, there's a very clear distinction on how beneficial it is because of that kind of feedback and iteration on getting that answer. So hopefully, it's very similar to how everyone else uses it. There's that kind of iterative session of ChatGPT, and kind of that's how it's useful. Just as another example that's not on this slide, I was talking to you yesterday about one of the devs, one of the developers at work, and they were saying that instead of sifting through documentation to find the answer that they needed, they could have just asked ChatGPT about documentation for a certain feature that they needed to build, which I thought was a great example. But yeah.
Awesome. Any questions at this point in time before we keep things going? All right, too easy. I might take a second to actually take over presenting because we would like to spend a little bit of time and do a bit of a brief live demo. So where is my share screen button? Open tray. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen? Yep, awesome. So what I'm actually keen to do is get a little bit of direction from everybody here in saying, like, we've talked about a couple of examples as to where it has helped in a couple of scenarios that we feel it could benefit. Does anybody have any kind of immediate questions or any immediate work-related ideas as to something that we can prompt for? So in the examples that we saw, there was a couple around helping with emails and so on and so forth. Does anyone have any particular preference? There's also meal plans. That could be a cool one to do. If not, I might just pick one at random.
We just had a comment from Chris about planning grocery shopping.
All right, fantastic. Let's see what it can do. All right. Hi, ChatGPT. Can you please help me plan out my grocery shopping? Okay. So one of the really cool things is that it can have a conversation with you. You can choose to just give it the prompt as to exactly what you want and it spits it out. But if you want it to be a bit more conversational as well, you can go about it. So I'll be happy to help with your grocery shopping. Let me know what you have in mind and how I can assist. Okay, so what is it that we want from a shopping list? What is a good protein to have for dinner? If I know how to spell, give me a second. Oh, T-I-E-N, is that how you spell it? Okay, so immediately giving me a lot of options. Perhaps I am on a restricted diet, so I don't want anything too fatty. So I can say, can you please restrict the options to a low-fat diet, for example. Okay. Any other thoughts in terms of any specifics to ask for and digging any deeper?
Yeah, could it? Oh, sorry, go Sam.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd jump in. Ben, I was wondering, maybe could we incorporate maybe a bit of our routine to this? I know we were talking about meal plans, we're talking about shopping lists. So, we're busy, we work in tech, we don't have a lot of time. So can it help us out with a weekly meal plan that is going to be easy to make and healthy? Maybe it has one of those proteins or good source of proteins listed in there as well. So starting to really tailor it to our lifestyle.
Okay, fantastic. And easy dinner ideas that I can make throughout the week. Once again, I cannot spell. Okay, so I'm very busy. With those options above, can you give me some quick and easy dinner ideas that I can make throughout the week? Let's see what it says. Fish tacos, grilled chicken salad, tofu stir fry. And as you can see, it's already given you like some base instructions on how to go about it even, which is fantastic. I didn't specify those requirements, but yeah, I think it's taken the context of the conversation to be able to give me an indication. And then it gives you the point of, remember, you can always meal prep ahead of time to save even more time during the week, cook larger portions and store them in separate containers. All right, fantastic. Anything else? Maybe we might go one or two more prompts and then we carry on.
Maybe let's ask, based on that meal plan, can ChatGPT generate a shopping list so then we know what we need to shop for?
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect. Do we want to pick any one of the dishes? Provide me with a shopping list for the grilled chicken. Any others that people are keen on? And all right, I'll pick tofu stir fry meals. Voila. So instead of me having to go away and do a search and find a recipe or whatever the case may be, it's giving me something quick and easy. Sorry, I feel like I cut someone off there.
Yeah, Ben, could you maybe say for like 4 servings per dish? I'll be curious to say if it says that, how many grams of each of the things we need.
Can you please update that to cover meals for, what did you say, 4 servings?
Yeah, 4 servings.
One bag, there you go. Okay, and here's a little bit of a localization. It says cherry tomatoes, 2 pins. So like I imagine not everyone would know what a pin is, but obviously for the sakes and purposes of what we're talking about here, it still like hits the mark in my view. How are we feeling about that? Does anyone want to chime in one last thing, or are we happy with that view of this quick demo? All right, easy. Let's stop it at that, just mindful of time. ML, feel free to jump back to presenting if you don't mind. But yeah, so I think I'm always polite, Kaya. I think it was as quick an example as it was. I think you can really see how helpful it can be, and that aligns to some of the earlier points that everybody made about how they are already using it, and as well as some of the ways that they can see it helping them in their workspace. So it is going into a situation and it gives you assistance. Like you go into a situation, you don't have the answer, and it is able to help you like figure it out on the fly. So I think, as most people are already aware, quite a powerful tool there, and very much one that's very good at assisting through some of the things that we need to do. If we move on to the next slide, I have a bit of a point to share from a work perspective as well, and I'll be very quick on this. Personally, one of the ways that I've seen it be used as well, and even we've kind of explored within some of our teams, is with regards to having difficult conversations. So as I said, I'm a bit of a people person in this particular scenario. I have a team member that might be struggling a little bit, might be having a little bit of a tough couple of months or whatever the case may be. And as the manager, team lead, whatever the case may be, I need to go in and have these conversations. Maybe it's something that I haven't done before, but I'm looking for a little bit of guidance. And so in this example, I was just like, hey, having a bit of a tough conversation with one of my team members. How can I go about it? And it gave me a few steps that I feel are probably very helpful. Now, the cool thing here from my perspective is I don't have to follow that to the T. I can be like, yep, this makes sense. I know my team member, I can work around it, but it's given me that starting point to work with. So I think it's very, very helpful in that case. There's also examples around writing user stories and being able to work on day-to-day tasks using this. But I guess the other point that I wanted to make here is that it's very good at giving those templates and structure that you can utilize without it necessarily being word for word what you need to do. Sorry, just catching up on the chat a little bit. I think Sadhana said, I typed in the prompt already. Can you please demo it? All right, sorry, let me see if I can find your prompt. Current methods. Oh, goodness, okay. Is it, what are the current methods of disposing regulated medical waste, specifically expired and contaminated blood? All right. ML, I might just take over the share again real quick and see what that gives us.
Yep, I just stopped sharing.
All right, easy. Okay. Changing. Can you guys see my?
Yeah, we can.
Quite drastically. I have another question. All right, so let's see what this says here. Okay, so there's a lot, and it's giving us all of the insights to all the different sections. Does that answer your question? All right. For the sakes and purposes of time, we might keep the ball rolling if that's okay. All right, I'll stop presenting again. Sorry to jump back and forth, ML, back to you.
Yep, can you see it now?
Yes.
Cool. All right, we should move on to the next slide.
Slide, please. Okay, so once again, we're keen to get your input with all of this. So we've kind of given you a couple of examples. We've talked about it quite briefly. So we're keen to see how people feel about ChatGPT and the impact so far. Do you have a general positive sentiment, mixed sentiment, negative? Once again, feel free to chuck sticky notes onto the board with how you're feeling, but also feel free to type it in the chat or even just call it out. Give everybody a few minutes to write things down.
Yeah, should put a 4-minute timer, 3 minutes.
Yeah, let's go with 3 minutes.
Let's do that. Nah, no music. Probably while we're just on this section, probably just a point that I forgot to note with the overview is that ChatGPT in itself is kind of like a master of everything. So you can ask it any, just in that showcase, it can be, your personal assistant for your shopping cart, but it can also ask questions. It can also answer questions about, disposing waste. So I think that's a pretty interesting to see where that goes. And probably one of the interesting elements that are happening in the commercialization of products like ChatGPT that is happening right now is that, for specific use cases, certain companies are streamlining it. So one of the examples that's given for ChatGPT 4 is an example of how it can kind of help society. And the example that they were talking about was a support program for it's called Be My Eyes. So essentially, it allows people to connect on their phone with other people, and then they can kind of be their seeing eyes. But what's happening is that kind of with machine vision, you can kind of use this AI tool to kind of be a person's eyes instead of another person. So it's kind of interesting to see the way that it's kind of shaping the landscape. But yeah, got 90 seconds left. Just thought I'd mention that.
Cool. Okay. I see Prashant has mentioned in the chat, how can I maintain academic integrity? Can we check whether students use ChatGPT to complete an assignment? I actually heard recently that a lot of universities are implementing, universities as an example, are already implementing tools to check if assignments and the such that are handed in are, I guess, plagiarized from ChatGPT or not. So I think that's already a factor that comes into play. But I also read a post recently where someone had spent and poured 15 hours of like dedicated time into writing a report that they were very proud of, and then their professor ran it through some of these tools, and it came back saying that it was AI generated. So I guess there's a bit of perhaps controversy in that regards as well.
It's like an arms race of AI versus AI catching cheating tools, which are probably built on AI. So
exactly right. All right, so it looks like we've got predominantly a mixed kind of perspective. Oh, I'm assuming based off of the color coding that people have chosen to use in terms of their stickies. So it's changing the way that people interact, sorry. Definitely a helpful tool. Where are we? Can become super reliant. So as in like we start becoming more and more reliant on it. Prevents humans from thinking on their own feet. Increase output expectations. Human competing with machines. There's a couple of negatives as well. Always being kind of say please and thank you. You never know. Okay, yeah, it's always good to be polite no matter who you're talking to. And then any PI concerns. So I think that's probably a big space that needs to be explored as part of this as well. And then the couple that in the positive, it knows everything, lit. And so far is just positive. I haven't encountered any negatives. It all depends on how it is used for your benefit. Yeah, absolutely. I think every one of these points are very valid. I think there are certainly pros and cons, and depending on where you are as an individual and how you use it, you'll potentially see a lot more of the pros. You might see a lot more of the cons. But holistically, it's like with any technology, any tool, it's not intrinsically good or bad. It comes down to how we can or can't use it, or choose to use it, I should say. Okay. Any other callouts? Anything else anyone wants to delve into in particular at this point? I see one more call in the chat as well. I think one disadvantage is that it removes the opportunity of the experience necessary for intellectual and brain development and maintenance, e.g. searching for, evaluating, and synthesizing information. Yeah, I think that's a very good call. I'm going to allude to that a little bit later as well. But I think that's a big point that we need to factor into all of this. Okay, if there's nothing else like pressing that anyone wants to touch on, we might keep the ball rolling at this point. So on to the next slide, please. Okay. We might make this very quick because I think we've touched on it quite a fair bit, and people have given their inputs already. So really just putting it out there, and maybe we can just give another 2 minutes. We've focused on a work perspective, although the demo we talked about shopping lists. Is there anything else from a non-work perspective? So outside of your work, any ways that you can see this being of value, either helping you or scenarios that you think can be of benefit? So yeah, let's give everybody 2 minutes to chime in here. I actually really like this one. Help me write rejection text for unsuccessful flatmates. That's a very different approach. I wouldn't have ever thought of that.
I had a friend that made ChatGPT help it write very sternly worded emails to his flatmates to clean up their mess. Probably not the best approach, but it helped him out.
The travel itineraries, those are really cool too. Explaining concepts such as medical terms in basic language, which average person can understand. I think that's a really good one as well. Okay. I think we're about out of time here, so if anyone wants to write 1 or 2 last ones, we'll diet and health, gym routine. Okay, so once again, very much that focus on assistance. Just mindful of time and apologies. I am going to keep this rolling, and I think we might be rehashing a few of the same points, but really just helping in weird and wonderful ways, ways that we might not immediately think of. So to that point of rejection texts to housemates. One that I personally really like is that gym routine one as well. It can really help you like discern all of this information that you would spend hours and hours trying to go through the internet to try to make sense of yourself, to try to put something together, or pay a whole lot of money for a, I don't know, personal trainer to sort out for you. It can also then help in that regards. One of my own examples is this travel itineraries. So I've got a trip that I'm planning very shortly, and I've actually reached out to ChatGPT to be like, hey, what do I need to pack for a snow trip, for example? So really, really good examples here. And I do think it really just re-emphasizes what we said earlier on about it being a very good assistant. Like going into a situation that you might not have the answers for, it is then able to help you progress with that. Cool. Any other call outs anyone wants to make? Otherwise, we can carry on. Okay, we'll keep going then. On to the next slide, please. So yeah, like I said, making holidays plans was an example, and we've already touched on it where we talked about cooking and shopping lists. One actual example that me personally, I'm really keen to see, as I alluded to earlier on, playing video games, when you play against non-playable characters, they usually have the same script that go over and over again. I've actually seen an article that touches on how it is able to be integrated. And I know of one or two examples where they're trying it, say for like Skyrim, for example, and it then allows for that character interaction to be a little bit more robust and a lot more depth. So you're able to have these conversations, and it's more than just a predefined 5 lines of conversation. So while that's from a gaming perspective, I can then also see it really expanding beyond that. So conversations with elderly people who might be a little bit isolated or alone, enabling them to be able to have that sort of a companionship, whether it's in an AR or VR kind of a space. So from my own personal perspective, I can see this being applied in a very interesting and very broad sense as well. So it's really, really cool to see where this can go. Okay, on to the next slide, please. And apologies, I've been hogging the mic quite a fair bit here, but one other kind of area that we wanted to explore a little bit is some of the quirks and issues that we've seen across the last few months of this tool being out there. So this example that you can see, and ML, if you don't mind zooming in a little bit on the screenshots, I came across this article a couple of weeks back where someone reached out to Bing Chat, and they wanted to know what viewing times were available for the new Avatar movie. And for whatever reason, Bing did not realize that it was 2023. It thought that it was still 2022. And so it was telling the person writing or conversing with it that they were wrong. It's like, sorry, this movie isn't out yet. You can't go see it. It's like, no, I'm sure that it's the right date. It's 2023. It's already out. Can you tell me what session times are? And it devolved to the point, and it's not entirely in this screenshot, to the point where Bing was telling the user that they are wrong, that they are bad. They've been mean to it. They've been interacting with it badly, basically gaslighting this user to say that they've mistaken the dates. And it got very defensive and argumentative with the user in telling them that they're simply wrong. So this was just one quirky example that I came across that I really enjoyed. I'm sure a lot of people have already come across a lot of different examples around this. But ML, if you don't mind zooming back out, as we all know, with new technologies, it's definitely not going to be perfect, right? So going a little bit into the quirks and issues that we are aware of or has kind of come to light from our perspective is that there's a very strong possibility of it being factually incorrect. So to that example, to some of the other examples that people have come across, it can just give you the wrong information. Now, that's not necessarily a big scary thing all the time, but if people are to just trust it implicitly without any further research, without going into any further detail, that can be quite problematic and can lead to issues down the line. One of the key factors to all of this as well is that it's been trained on information available on the internet. And as we all know, the internet is a big, scary place with less than pleasant people. And the fact that it has been trained off of this information then means that it in itself has wrong information. It can have biased information. It can have very dangerous information as well. So it is a risky state for this tool to be having just the general internet within its grasp. So that's a quirk. That's an issue in the sense that if the internet is generally racist, it's probably going to be racist. If the internet is generally misogynist, it is going to be somewhat misogynist. Like follows the trends of the information that it is trained on. I say that with a caveat that I know that a lot of these providers, such as OpenAI and the such, they purposely do building checks to avoid all of that. But once again, it's not entirely perfect. Some of these issues can still slip through. And then the next point that I wanted to make here, I think someone alluded to it earlier, is that you don't really check for facts once you're having this one-on-one conversation. It makes it easier to just go, oh, it's told me this, off I go. Whereas historically, when you do some research, you usually look at a couple of sources, you look at a couple of different options, and then you kind of come to your own conclusion. And I think one person mentioned earlier, it impacts your development and brain growth to be like, okay, well, I don't need to research. I'm not really critically thinking about these things. I'm just asking a question, getting the information, and off I go. So that's very much a risk involved with a tool such as this. And then, as with all things, it definitely has the potential of being misused. I think one of the points that we've previously talked about, just in terms of this topic in general, is whoever is in control of it, I suppose is a way to put it, they then have the means, the capacity, the tools to really drive and direct people in any way that they want. Who's to say, and not to put Microsoft under an evil scope or anything like that, but who's to say that Microsoft being chat doesn't start tweaking the algorithm a little bit to point it in one way or another? Again, not to say that that's what's happening, but the simple fact is, as a tool, it has the potential of being misused. And so we do need to be mindful of that as we go into all of this. Cool. Once again, any questions, any thoughts, any feels? All right, well, I'll just check the chat real quick in case I've missed anything. All right, well, ML, I might pass it back over to you to wrap it up for us.
Yeah, so we've only got 2 minutes left, but thank you everyone for joining. And really, we kind of wanted to, I guess the kind of core takeaway message that we wanted to bring you was, based on everyone's input, I think there is definitely an impact, but I think it's still maturing on understanding about how that looks like in the future. So another kind of point that we wanted to take away was, it's so brand new, keep your ear out, keep on the lookout and to see how this space grows. And probably a quick way to keep up to date with all of this stuff is, just following YouTube channels. So we've got 3 YouTube channels there that you could follow. They're a bit more technical, but they generally are very up to date. So generally, if there's an announcement happen on the day, they'll publish a 5-minute video. And that can kind of be your quick refresher on what's happening. Reddit is also a good opportunity to catch up to date with any new updates or any funny interactions or quirks. So that subreddit is pretty good. And if you're a bit more technically orientated, there are research papers that OpenAI publish about how their models work and how they're looking to iterate on all of those. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you found something useful about it. Hopefully you found a different perspective on ChatGPT or, really new ways of using it. But, this is a really open and exciting space, I think, to keep your ears on. Did you have anything else, Ben, that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, just quickly to say that, just to parrot what ML has said, thank you very much. Feel free to just use some of these resources, but also obviously look for your own different resources that are available out there. But we love having these conversations. So if there's anything further you want to talk about, feel free to reach out to us. If there's any insights or thoughts that you have that you'd like to share, always open to having the conversation, always open to connecting with people. So don't hesitate to reach out to ML or myself or anyone else from Lexicon for that matter. And yeah, we would love to be able to continue on with this conversation in another way, in another forum. But yeah, once again, thank you all very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys in the next Pass It On.
Thanks so much, guys.